My name is Sabrina Lingerfelter, and welcome to Crash Course AP European History. Today, I will be helped with Chris, Trey, and Mackenzie, and we are going to teach you about African decolonization, or in other words, why Africa has 54 countries. So, there's a lot of countries in Africa, and we cannot talk about the decolonization of every single one. So this is just a summary of a few. Some of them were violent, and some of them were peaceful, but you'll find that out later. So let's get started before another country comes along and colonizes Africa.
If Britain were a person, it would be the best Monopoly player ever. That is how many colonies it had. Since we are unfortunately limited to 15 minutes, we cannot discuss them all. Therefore, we will educate you on a few of the major colonies. Colonies such as Egypt,
Kenya,
and South Africa.
Egypt was one of the first colonies to gain its independence from Britain.
The Egyptian Revolution took place from 1919 to 1922.
It was led by Saad Zaghloul, and it had the help of the Wafd Party.
A new constitution was formed in 1923.
The revolution consisted of nonviolent boycotts and petitions.
It also had demonstrations and strikes that were held by student professionals and workers.
Unfortunately for the people, their independence was limited.
Kenyan independence, however, was not limited and was gained through a different approach.
A group of Africans led the Mau Mau Rebellion in the early 1950s. Unlike the Egyptian Revolution, the Mau Mau Rebellion was violent.
They attacked colonial leaders, white settlers, and forcing the government to declare a state of emergency.
Many Kenyans were arrested, including Jomo Kenyatta, the president of the Kenyan African Union, though he was only moderate with little connection for the Mau Mau group.
The British and Mau Mau members clashed for a number of years until finally a constitution was produced in 1963.
South Africa's independence movement was fueled by racial segregation called apartheid.
The Union of South Africa passed the Status of Union Act, declaring the country to be a sovereign independent state after Britain passed the Statute of Westminster in 1931.
A new president was elected by the National Assembly on May 9, 1994, and a new constitution was put into effect December 10, 1996.
Before decolonization, French colonies in Africa fought along with Charles de Gaulle and Free France in World War II. After World War II, the colonies wanted more freedom and respect from France. This meant that once again, France was going to lose. France realized they needed to reform the colonies, so they renamed the colonies the French Union and allowed them to have a few representatives in the National Assembly. French colonies in West Africa began to gain independence from 1954, lasting until 1962, due to the Algerian War of Independence. During the war, independence was granted to Morocco and Tunisia. De Gaulle returned to power in 1958 and allowed French colonies to choose between independence from France or internal self-government in a French community. It was obvious that any colony that rejected France lost all economic aid France provided. Only Guinea voted for independence from France, causing them to fall into economic depression until Guyana saved them. Guinea's success encouraged other French colonies to become independent. Chad, Congo, Gabon, and the Central African Republic emerged as the nations in Central Africa. French West Africa became Senegal, Côte d'Ivoire, Mauritania, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali. The Suez Crisis of 1956 also displayed a lessening French rule because England and France tried to retake the canal, but the United States did not back their plan. Many conflicts resulted from France leaving their rule of Africa. One of these conflicts was the Nigerian Civil War, where the southeastern part of the country tried to succeed. This caused ethnic tension between the Hassas of the north and the Igbo of the southeast. The war was full of genocide, predominantly of the Igbo people. So as you can see, as I said in the beginning, France once again lost and was kicked out of Africa forever.
The Italian Empire attempted to expand its borders by colonizing Libya, southern Somalia, Eritrea, and eventually Ethiopia. These countries were rich in resources, and the relative location of Eritrea and Somalia to the Red Sea and Indian Ocean, with better access to trade, made them desirable possessions.
Italy's first attempt to invade Ethiopia was a failure, making Ethiopia the first country to oppose colonization. However, the second invasion was successful.
The UN's policy of self-determination gave countries the right and ability to choose their government and statehood, which prompted the decolonization.
Ethiopia annexed Eritrea, which removed it from Italian control.
Somalia became controlled by the UN after World War II. Southern Somalia united with northern Somalia and gained independence.
Libya had been divided between France and England, but it gained independence in 1952.
And that's it. The colonies booted Italy out just like that.
Another country who lost the control of important colonies was Belgium. They controlled the Belgian Congo,
AKA Zaire.
yes, and also Rwanda.
When England and France started decolonizing, Belgium was not strong enough to resist it. Therefore, civil wars erupted in Congo and eventually led to independence in 1960.
Fun fact, 1960 was known as the Year of Africa, when many countries gained their independence.
Anyways, when Congo gained independence, it was not stable because the Belgians had simply exploited it and rather than developing it.
The original colonization of Rwanda by Germany led to very horrific events: genocide of the Hutsis and the Tutsis.
Yes, when Germany first colonized Rwanda, they were the first to distinguish the two groups, the Hutus and the Tutsis, by race, therefore sparking the conflict over which race was superior. But Germany lost Rwanda after World War II, and it went to Belgium.
Portugal was one of the very first countries to establish a global empire. Africa was no exception to this empire. Portugal's first presence in Africa came with the discovery of the Cape of Good Hope in 1488. Also, since Portugal contributed heavily to the African slave trade, this included establishing port cities in Africa. These port cities later expanded and became colonies.
Like most forms of independence movements, the Portuguese colonies felt oppressed and discriminated against by their mother country and wanted it to be independent. The fact that there was a government overthrow in Portugal in 1974 gave hope to those colonies, for the new government wanted to rid all overseas colonies of the presence of the Portuguese.
The country of Mozambique gained its independence through the Mozambique War of Independence. This war lasted from 1963 to 1975, and the military tactic of guerrilla warfare was used throughout this war. This war was between the FRELIMO group and the Portuguese. Mozambique gained independence in 1975, and its first leader was Samora Machel.
Cape Verde was heavily influenced by Guinea-Bissau's War of Independence. The PAIGC fought against the Portuguese for their independence until finally a coup in Portugal on April 25, 1974, took place and pushed Portugal out. Cape Verde became independent on July 5, 1975. There was also an independent movement in Sao Tome and Principe, but that was relatively peaceful and gained independence in 1975.
Like the other independence movements, guerrilla warfare was the primary form of fighting by Angola. The Angolan War of Independence was fought from 1961 to 1974 and concluded with the Portuguese withdrawal of troops due to the revolution back in Portugal. Angola was granted independence on November 11, 1975, and their first president was Agostinho Neto. Fast fact, Augustino is my middle name, but that is neither here nor there. That's African decolonization in a nutshell. There are many other independence movements, but these are just a few. But I digress.